All right, I see it's 6 p.m. and I'd like to welcome everybody to the West Richland City Council meeting for May 2nd, 2023. And before we call the roll, I'd ask Amy to please read the hybrid meeting ground rules.
Tonight's meeting will be held in person with a virtual meeting component. If you are participating virtually, please make sure the name shown at the bottom of your video view is the name you would like the mayor to use. You can change this by right-clicking on your video view and selecting Rename. Audience members present in the council chambers will be called upon during public comment periods. Those participating remotely should virtually raise your hand if you wish to speak. To virtually raise your hand, click on Participants and then click on Raise Hand. If you are participating by phone, only press *9 to raise your hand. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Amy, go ahead and read the roll call.
Brent Gary.
Here.
Richard Bloom.
Here.
Fred Brink.
Here.
David Fetto.
Here.
May Hayes.
Here.
Kate Moran.
Present.
John Smart.
Here.
Ken Stoker.
Buzz, okay.
That's what I
may I have a motion to please excuse council member Stoker. Can see his face.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you. Appreciate that. And this evening, Councilman Bloom, will you lead us in pledge of allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Councilman Bloom.
I remove my second.
We'll make a note that Councilman Stoker is present this evening. The boys told us, the ladies and gentlemen here said you were going to be gone, but that was 2 weekends ago.
We misremembered.
Another camping trip, right? Very good. All righty. And council, the agenda is before you this evening. And the executive session that we had listed is no longer needed this evening. We're going to go ahead and move it on to a later date. There's one other change to the agenda, and that was item 6D, the resolution 2423, the vacation is 002-2023. It was originally listed as 006-2022. So make that note. F6D is vacation 002-2023. So with that, may I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended, please?
I approve the agenda as amended. Second.
Motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. And this evening we have a couple of different presentations, and we're going to go ahead and start off with Lori Matson from the Tri-City Regional Chamber of Commerce. Lori, thank you for joining this evening, and you've got an audience to speak to besides the council, so welcome.
The mayor and Eric about some of the things the chamber is doing. And we have a really exciting program. I wanted to make sure that the council was aware of it, and as well as perhaps businesses in West Richland that are watching, and or that all of you at the city could help get this information out so we could help more West Richland businesses. But this is called, and I think, is it Stephanie? I forget who I was.
Got Amy and
Amy.
Stephanie.
Oh, okay, Amy. So you're clicking for me. Okay, perfect. Yeah. So this is called the Business Resource Initiative, and I think the thing up on that screen there says there's saying
got some recording meeting.
Yeah, there we go.
On.
Okay, it's fine.
So let's go ahead and we'll have.
I just wanted the people in the room to be able to see. Okay, so the Business Resource Initiative is a program that's going from June 22nd to December of 2023, and it's a partnership between the Tri-City Regional Chamber and Benton County, where we will give $3 million in grant funds to Benton County small businesses. We already finished rounds 1 and 2, and we just will be opening the application period for round 3 Yes.
We have to click that from the
Oh,
laptop.
hi,
there.
Eric.
How you doing, Lori?
Good.
Great to see you.
Good to see you too.
Leave that laptop off there. She can go ahead and finish there.
Okay. All right. Try again. Oh.
You failed.
You're fine.
Back in the old days, we used to use pen and paper, you know, hold a little sign up in school. Grease pencils in the pocket and dryer, yeah. Thank you, Stephanie. All right, sorry for the interruption.
Oh, no, it's fine. It's fine. And so we're getting ready to launch our round 3. And again, we're just hoping to help more West Richland businesses. So the next slide, or maybe 2 slides, is the business eligibility slide. And again, I'm not going to read all of this, but I want to be sure that you're aware that the businesses have to be either an active business or a nonprofit, have to have less than 51 full-time employees located in Benton County. It's amazing. We've had lots of non-Benton County businesses apply, have to be independently owned and operated, started prior to 2021. This program is meant to help businesses that were most affected by COVID. So they have to have been in business prior to 2021, have a current business license, have to provide tax returns, and have an annual revenue of between 30,000 and 5 million. The things that they can use, next slide, the items they can use their grant awards for are listed here on the next slide. I think it is grant award options is rent and utility assistance, workforce training, digital platform upgrades, work incentive bonuses, outdoor space enhancements. And I'll show you a little bit about what people have been doing with the money so far. So far I mentioned we've had 2 rounds 1 and 2, October and just now in February. We've had 490 businesses in Benton County, well, not just in Benton County, apply. 490 businesses have applied, and 231 of those had complete applications and or were met the criteria to go to our evaluation panel. And of the 231 businesses, 98 businesses won grant funds. And the next, I'm sorry, I'm bad about saying next slide. Next slide would go to applicant demographics. Rounds 1 and 2. I'll slow down and do that next one, or before that, I think it is. Sorry. There we go. Thank you. All right, we're on track. So you can see that the demographics, these are all of the applicants so far. These 490 businesses so far, 28% were female, 13% were Hispanic, 4% other, 3% Asian, veterans. You can see on down the line there of the demographics. Again, we're really trying to reach those businesses that were most impacted and those that have the greatest need. The next slide shows the applicants by industry sector. Really interesting, over 25% of those were in the hospitality and tourism industry. And again, you think of the businesses that were most affected by COVID, that's probably one of them there. Other services, healthcare, retail, architecture, and on down the line. Again, that's 490 businesses make up these percentages here. And then next by city, this will be interesting to West Richland. So most of those businesses came from Kennewick and Richland and Prosser. We had 4% of the 490 were West Richland businesses, and 2% came from Benton County. Or I'm sorry, these were the awards. Sorry, of the 98 businesses, 4% came from West Richland. And then the demographics, the next slide, again, were 45% female of those 98, 24% Hispanic, 8% Asian, 5% American Indian, 5% veteran. And then the next slide shows the grant award amounts. Businesses can apply for, they get 3,000 to 30,000. And so we gave out only three awards were 3,000. And we gave out 34 businesses received $30,000. That's a huge help to those businesses. 20 were the smaller 3,000 to 10,000, 27 were 10 to 20, 14 were 20 to 30. And again, 34 of them were $30,000. consumers. The next slide shows what these businesses use this for. So again, they didn't have to select just one. If they got $30,000, they could do 5, 5, and 5, or split it up 10 and 10 and 10. So most of them are using it for rent and utility assistance or digital platform upgrades, workforce training. Very few are using it for outdoor space enhancements, which is kind of surprising. But again, this is through our first 2 rounds. The next slide talks about the reporting. A lot of people are interested in, so you get $30,000. What does the business have to do to provide back any kind of accountability for that? And so these are some of the things they have to do. They have to certify that they're not being reimbursed, so they're not double dipping. We will go through an audit because we're dispersing $3 million in federal funds. So we have to ensure that all these things are above par. They have to certify that their funds were received and they were only an eligible business expense, and they have to provide receipts and documentation. So these are all things that we're starting to get from these first two rounds of businesses. The next slide shows our round 3 timeline. Again, we're getting ready to open the application period on June 1st. So this will be our final round. We're hoping for hundreds of applicants again. So this is why I'm here. I want to get the word out. June 1st through June 30th. The applicants will be scored during July 1st and July 31st. And then we have an evaluation panel that will meet in August to distribute this $1 million. And we actually have a little left over. We didn't quite distribute $1 million either in the first or second round. So we have a little more than $1 million in the third round that we will distribute. And then in September, these businesses will come in and receive their checks. Right now, we have, during the month of May, we have 50 some businesses coming in to get their checks that they got during the second round. Other people coming in every day waiting to see our grant coordinator to pick up their checks. The next slide talks about the process for the applications. And again, the things they have to do is tell us the number of employees. They have to show whether they're nonprofit or profit, provide their demographics, share their pre, during, and post-COVID experience, their tax forms, bank statements, and share whether they've received any other COVID loans or grants. This is pretty in-depth. The information, it's all shared on a very secure website so that when people are sharing their personal information, we purchased a program and are working closely with Benton County to make sure that all of the information we received is very, very secure. And then the evaluation part is the next slide. We've got a panel made up primarily of board members, Tri-City Regional Chamber board members that are meeting, but they represent a wide range of industries and business sizes. I mentioned that the applications are scored during a whole month. Our grant coordinator goes through and makes sure that they meet all the criteria and that they filled everything correctly. And then we have this whole matrix of if they do this, they get a point, or if they do this, they get a point. So they can have a maximum point total of, I believe it's like 24 points. When the evaluation panel meets, we remove all personal information. We don't even have the business name on because we don't want myself or a board member to see someone they know and either based on that decide to give them an award or not an award. So all of that information, the only thing that's left on there is their industry, but their names are removed. And again, we have this tiered scoring system. And then based on our contract with the county, the business can get $3,000 to $30,000, and it represents 6 to 10% of their gross revenue. That's where the 3 to 30 comes in. And then again, this shows here what we gave out in rounds 1 and 2. So we've got $1,129,481 to give out in round 3. And so here's how to apply. The next slide, people can come in and either pick up or drop off an application if they'd like to come in person. We have applications available in English, Spanish, and Russian, or they can mail it in to the Tri-City Regional Chamber, or they can fill it out online. We've got our website, bentonbri.com. And again, it's very safe and secure. I want to mention on the next slide, in addition to this grant program, the Benton Resource Initiative, or the Business Resource Initiative, also includes what we call a business resource navigator. And it's a full-time person embedded in the chamber. And their whole purpose is to help businesses either identify if they're eligible to apply for this, and or if they are eligible but they don't receive funds, they can meet with Rick Peenstra. He's a retired bank executive. He started Community First Bank. He will meet with these people, and maybe they're not eligible for this grant program, but he helps them find other grant opportunities. So he'll help a business identify if there's grants out there. For instance, let's say a business needs to update their HVAC or something. He'll go research if there's opportunities for grant funds for a business to do something like that. So we're really trying to provide this one-stop shop for small businesses to come in and access, whether it's things that we're providing or whether it's resources that others are providing. But he's meeting with dozens of clients every month, and really just trying to be a resource to businesses in Benton County. The final slide, again, is just our contact information and the website for bentonbri.com. And we just hope that the city can put this out there, or again, anyone watching, if you're not sure if you qualify or if you should apply, you can contact our office. Tracy Booth is our grant coordinator, and she'd be happy to meet with anybody and walk them through the process and help them learn if they're eligible. But we have over $1 million. We want to give this away to as many businesses as possible.
Show me the money. That's
Absolutely.
great. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wonderful presentation. And yeah, we'll certainly get some information out on our Facebook page, and I'll ask the chief to put it out on the West Richland Police Department's Facebook page as well. Well, we've got the captive audience and our brave ones in blue. Thank you for everything you guys do. But that also gives us an opportunity for them to stop and make contact with our local businesses and share with them opportunities that the regional chamber has to offer.
Absolutely.
So we'll get the word out.
Good.
See if we can get that number up a little bit more than 4 from West Richland.
Yeah, we'd love that. We'd love that. Thanks so much.
Also, any questions to Dave, Councilor Fennell?
That's good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Laura, I think I might have missed it. Do the people who apply, do they need to be chamber members?
No.
Okay.
No.
We encourage them to be, but
no, actually, I mean, that's wonderful if they want to, but we have another program we do with Washington River. It's a much smaller. We have $30,000 that we give away once a year. And that is a requirement to be a member of the chamber, but this is not. Any business in Benton County, you don't have to be a member of any chamber. You can just apply. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's no pressure. If they do, when they come pick up their money, there's nothing that's, there's no membership application in that either. So there's really no pressure at all.
Mayor Pro Tem Bray.
Thank you, Ms. Mattson, for
Yeah.
the detailed presentation. Just one question with regard to scoring criteria. Is that something that you can share or is made public to the applicants?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It is a really detailed, we nicknamed it Bertha. It is a multi-page, it's an Excel spreadsheet that I believe we go through Z, and I think it's like AAP or so. I mean, it's that many columns. But it's everything from, like, if they received funding for this, if they're, it starts with everything on the application, and then she goes through. So there's really no, there's no objectivity in this. It's not like, well, we didn't like the way they worded that. It's really just, we're trying to identify the businesses with greatest need. So there's a story in people's tax returns, or there's a story in people's bank statements. And so we're really looking for the details of those. So our grant coordinator goes through those, and then goes line by line for all these 490 businesses, has gone through and given everybody a score, 1 or 2 or whatnot. And then when it's all done, then we just sort them by who scored the highest, and start, well, that business is eligible for 10,000, and that the next one is eligible for 30. And so we just start going down that list until we hit that million. But certainly, if businesses that don't receive that, that either don't hit that number, they don't score high enough, Tracy will still meet with them and explain to them, and actually also encourage them to apply in this last round, because we never know who's going to be applying. Maybe someone who scored in the middle of the pack would score higher. Maybe they would reapply, maybe they, and that someone who applies, they could end up just being more at the middle of the pack or the higher in the pack and being able to get the funds this last time. Plus we have more to give out.
All right. No, thank you very much for the
Yeah,
additional
absolutely.
information.
Thank you.
Just for clarification, you said that one category was outdoor improvements or something of that
Space
nature. And
improvement.
what I reflect on is that most businesses or a lot of businesses rent their space, but the business that owns the building may have also suffered. So they would be eligible as the landlord for outdoor improvements, which would benefit the residents
Of
of
course.
the building.
Mhm.
So I'm not quite sure you've been reaching out to landlords as a business
Right.
itself. So a couple of people came to my mind
Mhm.
that I might,
Please share. Yes.
that would be a faceless for the city
Mhm.
as well as
Mhm.
for their customers.
Yeah, that's a great point. We have we've been working with Brandcraft. We did a RFP looking for a marketing partner. We have a great video. We mailed a letter to every single business in Benton County when this first got started last fall. And we've been doing, our BRI team has been doing walking tours and trying to get out to meet businesses. We've held community meetings in libraries and other places. We've made presentations at chambers of commerce, other chambers and other organizations, just trying to get out to as many businesses as possible, and trying to reach these people. So certainly we probably haven't reached everybody, but any help that you could give us, or if you know of a landlord that could coordinate with their tenant and figure out a way to apply and provide this information, that'd be great if they could be selected.
Councilman Spark?
Yeah, I just had a couple of quick questions. Thanks for the presentation. It's very good. What's the, how long has this organization existed in the Tri-Cities or in Benton County?
Well, the regional chamber or the resource
the
initiative.
Business resources.
Yeah, we just kicked it off. We started working on this probably over a year ago within our staff. We knew these are ARPA funds. When we knew that that our stakeholder groups, our cities and our counties were getting millions of dollars in ARPA funds, we wanted to find a way to partner and to be a partner to our stakeholder groups to get money out to businesses. So we created, actually, I'll just give her credit. Stephanie Barnard is now a state representative. She was our government and regional affairs director at the time. She doesn't work for the chamber anymore because she's a state legislator, but she's the one who really dreamt this program up and started working with the county to write up a white paper. And last June, she and I went to one of the county commissioners meetings and we presented this project and they approved it. And so we got the contract, I think, in mid-June of last year. And it has a limited time. We have $3 million. And so once the money is done and once we've done what we have to do, which will take us through December of this year, then our contract ends and then this program goes away. Unless there's additional money or there's another opportunity. We'd love to keep doing stuff like this though.
Right. Thank you for anticipating my next question.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yes, we would.
One last question is the metrics that you came up with, so the information you collect from the businesses, was there guidance from the state on that, or do you guys just come up with that on your own?
Yeah,
and,
there
and
was.
Follow up is what's going to happen to all that data when you're done? Like, do you have to pass it on to the state or does it just stay local?
Yeah, so I don't know if I don't know that I know the answer to that question. I think what we will, we will take our cue from Benton County, who, and so obviously we know we're going to be audited. Part of our admin fee to the county is budgeting for a big ticket audit for that. And so, but we have all of that data and we will give it to whoever we have to give it to.
Okay.
But yeah,
fair enough.
and I don't know the answer. I think a lot of this came from the ARPA ruling. It was hundreds of pages. We had 2 staff members read that in detail. We had, we've got a board, 38 local business people on our board. They've provided a great deal of counsel to us in terms of criteria and scoring and our process. Bankers and such have been a great deal of help to us.
Yeah, it sounds like great service to the community, so I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Cory, thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome. I'll let you get back to your meeting.
On and we'll see if we
Okay.
can get you some more peeps from West Richland.
Okay, thanks so much. I appreciate your time.
Appreciate it. Okay, council, with that, we're gonna go ahead and move on to, although an item that wasn't on the agenda this evening, we've got Chief Grego is gonna take a minute to introduce a couple of new employees here at the City of West Richlands Police Department.
Thank you,
Chief
Mayor.
Grego.
Thanks, Mayor. Good evening, council. Tonight, by introducing two new employees, and they're high quality employees that we always hire, I believe we've hit a milestone as a department. We are now fully staffed, and I'm not sure too many departments in Washington State can say that. And I'm pretty proud of that. I give the credit to my team. I don't take credit for this. They've gone out and done the recruiting efforts and stuff. They did this by gaining the reputation that they do as a team in this state. And I believe it's across the state of how well West Richland does. And so anyway, so I just want to express that before I start tonight. Okay, so first off, I'll introduce Melissa, who is the new Chief Executive Assistant. You come on up for me, Melissa. So Melissa Hedrick has been married to her husband, Clarence. He goes by Gene. She calls him Buddy for 11 years. He was medically retired from the military. He served with the Marines and the Army for 11 years total. He is now a social worker for the state with developmental disability DDA administration. Okay, I just want to confirm. Melissa has two sons, Logan, 19, who lives in Bellingham. He works for his dad's property development company at Anthony's Restaurant and is in the process of opening a car dealership. He's a busy kid. Tucker just turned 11 yesterday. Happy birthday again, Tucker. How you doing, buddy? All right. And is in the 4th grade. He's a super smart, and Melissa says that he's way smarter than she is. I understand that my kids are too. And he's a scientist boy, that's how she describes him. They're both amazing, kind kids. And she also has 3 dog sons. They're Boston Terriers, Hank, Frank, and Rusty. Her husband was born and raised in Las Vegas, and she talked him into moving out to Bellingham and bringing up to visit in August. And the only time it wasn't raining. And he learned quickly that he did not like it there. And he wanted to move back to somewhere in the state that is nothing like Bellingham. And the feeling was mutual. And they finally achieved that. They finally achieved that goal by relocating last November here to the sunny Tri-Cities. In Bellingham, she worked for the Public Defender's Office for 4 years, and then at the Bellingham Police Department as an evidence specialist for 9. It wasn't on here, but I'll tell you also, she helped them through accreditation, which is a huge task for an evidence room. She loved her job and the officers there and really enjoyed the police department environment. Here in the Tri-Cities, she worked for Benton Franklin County Superior Court as a domestic case manager. She learned a lot and really enjoyed working with the people there, but she said is very happy to be back at home in a police department. She says working for the West Richland Police Department has been more than she's ever hoped for. And she says everyone at the police department in the city, included in general, have been so welcoming and friendly. She's very happy to be part of the team and looks forward to seeing what the future holds for all of us. So with that being said, I'll ask you to say something.
Just want to say thank you for the opportunity. Do I have to come? It's been wonderful. Everybody's been so kind, and it's a beautiful city to be in, and having a beautiful new building and a dog is pretty awesome too. So yeah, that's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we're real lucky to have you. Your background and your history coming in and be able to speak the language that these people speak, because they speak a whole different language than we speak in this building here. And I've heard nothing but great things about you, and I really appreciate you keeping the Energizer Bunny, Chief Grego, on task, removing one battery in the morning when you get to work and just kind of rolling on through the day. So we thank you for everything you do, because Chief Grego he's got a workload that's been more than what a person could expect a man to do, and it's going to be certainly beneficial for you to assist him in his duties to keep our officers in the condition of the places that they need to be. as well as the history of evidence and the technical knowledge that you've brought to the department for all of our front staff is just absolutely fantastic. So we welcome you and glad to have you part of our family. So if you would please come and let council introduce themselves.
All right, next we'll have Zachary Rehas come up. Zachary is an entry-level police officer. He will be attending the very first regional academy starting next week. The actual opening is occurring tomorrow with the governor, so he'll get to do that. I told him he's making history because obviously he's representing West Richland. It'll be the very first academy in the region, so it's pretty awesome. Zachary Rehas was born at Cadillac Hospital in Richland in Benton County. He has lived in the Tri-Cities his whole life. He grew up in Pasco, Washington, and graduated from Pasco High School in 2012. After graduating high school, he attended Columbia Basin College and received his Associate of Arts degree. He is very interested in psychology and human behavior. Zach has a passion for bodybuilding and spends most of his free time at the gym. You'd never be able to tell. He's a very competitive person, and his fitness journey has taught him self-discipline and self-accountability. About 5 years ago, Zach made achieving a career in law enforcement his #1 priority and life goal. He began by doing this security at a nightclub. Then he left that job and was hired on as a corrections officer at Washington State DOC Coyote Ridge. He did this for about a year before being picked up by Franklin County Sheriff's Office as a correctional deputy. This lasted for almost 2 years before being hired on with the department. Zach is an entry-level police officer and is honored to have this opportunity to pursue his calling. He has a lot to learn and plenty of training to get done, but he knows exactly where he's supposed to be. Some activities Zach enjoys when he is not at work include camping at Mount Rainier specifically, I guess, riding motorcycles, going to the gym, and attending live music concerts. I'm honored to have Zach as part of this team, and I look forward to making history attending the first regional academy, which starts, like I said, next week. So at this time, I'll read him his oath of office. So go ahead and step up to the mic.
If anybody has cameras that they'd like to bring up front and witness this? We can't miss a Kodak moment, right? Perfect.
I, Zachary Riojas,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the state of Washington,
and the state of Washington,
and that I will faithfully
and that I will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
perform and discharge the duties of police officer
perform and discharge the duties of police officer
for the city of West Richland, Washington,
for the city of West Richland, Washington,
according to the law,
according to the law
best of
and the best of my ability.
Welcome, Zachary.
Thank you, Mayor. First off, I do want to thank my family. They have been my rock, especially my grandmother.
Where's grandma?
She's right there in the middle in that West Richland blue. My mother as well, and Chief Grego for giving me a shot, along with command staff for doing my background and whatnot. So I'm ecstatic to be here. I'm going to do my best, and I'm ready for the journey. So.
Thank you very much. We're glad to have you. And I tell you what, they'll give us, by the time you get through the academy, we'll probably have the uniform specially tailored to fit you. Chief.
Mike over so down the edge.
That's all good. And we'll make sure that we get a vehicle that has plenty of leg room. So that's great. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate you. If you'd please introduce yourself to the council. Council introduce you to you. Perfect. Thank you, sir. Hey. We're gonna go ahead and move on to the rest of the agenda this evening. If you want to stick around for the rest of the show, you're more than welcome to. If you're gonna go out and have some pizza, go enjoy yourself. All righty. Zach's gonna buy. Thanks for coming, folks. We really appreciate it. Come back anytime. This is a house of friends and family. Okay, council, the consent agenda is before you this evening, which would include the approved minutes of the regular meeting, April 11th, 2023. Resolution 2223, setting a public hearing date to consider frontage improvement waiver for lot 74, section 6, South 58th Avenue and Everett Street. A resolution 2323, interlocal cooperation agreement with Benton Franklin Health District and cities of Kennewick, Richland, and Pasco for funding the operation of the regional algae bloom laboratory screening service. A resolution 2423, resolution to set a public hearing for vacation of 002-2023. Resolution 2523, authorizing adoption of the proclamation proclaiming May 7th through 13th as Public Service Recognition Week. Is there anyone from the audience who has just left us? I see none here, but do we have anybody virtually that would like to? Just a second, I'll get it. Yes. Did I miss one? Yeah. 6F, motion to authorize amendment of number 1 of 2023 on-call engineering services with JUB. That was the bifocal. Sorry about that. And then I believe we don't have anybody in the audience, but I believe there is a council member that would like to step to the podium for a public comment.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there anyone from the audience? We're going to speak first. Yeah. So if you'd like to speak, go ahead and say. I thought this was the one that you wanted to talk to. Okay, my bad. I apologize. With that, may I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
The motion to second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous. Which one of those on 58-3 you're going to talk to? I got confused. All right, there we go. Perfect. All right, so we're going to go ahead and roll on here. I didn't see anybody from the audience or from the virtual that wanted to speak. Did you?
That is correct.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and move on. Citizen public comment. That's the one that you're going to talk to. Go ahead and head your way up there. First opportunity for citizen public comment. Oh, this is, you're gonna have to sit down. This is for items not on the agenda. Oh, is it on the agenda?
Of course not, Mr. Mayor. I'm coming to the citizen public comment for items not on the agenda.
Okay.
I'm
very
Richard
good.
Bloom,
Perfect. You got 3
5900
minutes to
Everett
address
Street.
council. And you name and place of residence. Please.
I'll do that again. Richard Bloom, 5900 Everett Street. At the last city council meeting, while I was sitting up there, this is the first time I've been on this side of the podium in 13 years, but I was a very familiar face for the previous, God knows how many years. Anyway, probably 8. The item last city council meeting, Mr. Slade made it known that a petition that was presented to, and I think all members of the council got it, to redesignate Everett Street as a fire access road from a city street. And Mr. Slade announced that the staff was rejecting that recommendation and I contacted him and spoke with him as to the rationale behind that. I believe the rationale is flawed, and I provided Mr. Slade with technical information of why it is in the best interest of the city to redesignate it as a fire access road. And I asked him to share that with the Utilities Committee and reconsider the overall project. I believe it is definitely in the best interest of the city not to open Pandora's box, which is the water I sit on top of. And so from that standpoint, I really recommend the staff and city council to look closely at the situation, because the situation is not as Mr. Slade has in his mind. So thank you.
Thank you. And there's nobody else in here. And is there anyone from the virtual audience who'd like to speak this evening? Raise your hand or star 9. I see no one. Amy, do you see anyone else there?
Yes, there is someone that does have their hand raised. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It was me. No, there is not.
Different hand. You're as confused as I am this evening. All righty, perfect. We're gonna go ahead and move on then. Let's see, we're gonna go to 8, which is closed record hearing for plat 003-2023 Caden Estates preliminary plat. And this is a closed record hearing, so I'll ask our city attorney Jessica Fultz to read through the public hearing guidelines. And then we'll hear from Alicia for our staff report.
Of this closed record hearing is for the city council to consider the pertinent facts, applicable law, and to make a final on the Caden Estates preliminary plat, file number plat 003-2023. Fairness doctrine applies to this hearing. That document requires that this hearing be fair in form, substance, and appearance. The hearing must not only be fair, it must also appear to be fair. Therefore, at this time, I would like to ask a few questions of the council. Has any member of the council engaged in communication with opponents or proponents regarding this issue outside of the public hearing process?
No.
Will any member of the council obtain any financial benefit or suffer a financial loss as a result of the outcome of this hearing?
No.
No.
Is there any member of the council who believes that he or she cannot hear and consider this application in a fair and objective manner?
No.
Is there any member of the public, either proponent or opponent of this matter, who objects to the participation of any of the council members in hearing this matter?
I see no hands up virtually and nobody present in the audience. Okay, thank you. With that, Alicia will have your staff report this evening.
Good evening. I'm not nearly as tall as Officer Riojas, so I have to adjust the microphone. No, I can't even imagine that. This is the application for plat 003-2023 Caden Estates. The applicant is Knutson Engineering and the property on behalf of the property owner, Dirks Properties LLC. The property info, it's 1.14 acres. They're proposing 9 lots, 3 of which will be regular single-family home lots over 6,000 square feet, and 6 of them will be townhome lots. This does meet with the requirement of 9 units per acre maximum for townhome lots. The property is located west of West Van Giesen and south of Woodford Lane. The applicant submitted the proper application materials with the signed application, the preliminary plat map, a SEPA checklist, letters from Kennewick Irrigation District and Columbia Irrigation District certifying that the property is not located within their irrigation districts, and a frontage waiver request. The frontage waiver was heard by, the public hearing was heard by Planning Commission, and they recommended to approve the frontage waiver. Public Works has asked that the frontage waiver information in the findings of fact and in the conditions of approval be clarified. Those changes are noted in the staff report, and they are italicized and underlined. We did a SEPA review on the preliminary plat application. We issued a revised mitigated determination of non-significance on April 6th, 2022. That revised MDNS is located in the Planning Commission packet. We received standard comments from reviewing agencies such as Benton Clean Air Authority. We received a comment from WashDOT, as well as the Department of Ecology. The full comments, including a few that were received after the Planning Commission staff report was completed, are included in the packet. The public notice was sent to property owners on March 21st of 2023. The Community Development Department received 4 written comments from the following parties. 1, Cynthia and James McWhorter. 2, Dan Allman, Carrie Foster, and Megan Spear. 3, Rebecca Woodford Kopp and Christopher Kopp and Kathleen Woodford. And 4, Janet and William Wildenborg. Obviously we don't have time to read the entirety of the comments. They are in the record, and they were included in the staff report for the Planning Commission packet, but just as a summary, the main issues. 1, Woodford Lane should not be the means of access for the property. The property should be accessed via the driveway approach to the south of the property off of West Van Giesen. As a response to that, the city said that Short Plat 531 was originally created in 1977. It created 4 lots. Along the north side of lots 1, 2, and 3 is a 30-foot ingress and egress easement, which is now called Woodford Lane. And that was designated to provide the lots access from SR 224. Along the east side of lot 3 is a 30-foot ingress and egress easement to provide access to lot 2. The note on the short plat map states specifically access to lots 1 through 4 is limited to egress easements shown hereon. No access from state highway. The legal access to lot 2 is through the easement on lot 3, and condition 1C addresses the access requirements that may be revised with the information provided by Public Works, but condition 1 in its entirety addresses that access. 2, there are encroachments in the 30-foot access easement recorded on Short Plat 531 that may impact the use of the designated access easement. This is a civil matter that will need to be resolved between property owners prior to final plat approval. That's not a condition of approval. It's just logistically how that will have to happen. The proposed lots would increase, number 3, the proposed lots would increase the number of homes in the vicinity and change the character of the neighborhood. The proposed project is consistent with the zoning of the property, which is RM6, and does not exceed the density maximum of 9 units per acre as required by WRMC table 17.54.050.1. Number 4, the additional homes would create additional noise and traffic. The project proponent shall be subject to traffic mitigation fees per WRMC 16.14.200 that will mitigate any needed improvement to public streets. The property owner will be required to abide by WRMC 9.38, the chapter on noise regulation. This chapter addresses construction noise, vehicular traffic noise, and other noise. 5, the property owner did not reach out to the surrounding property owners prior to submitting an application to the city. This is a civil matter to be resolved between the property owners. The city did comply with all requirements of public noticing per chapter 14. And then during the planning commission meeting and issue, there was a question about the access again, and why the access had to be off of Woodford Lane and why couldn't they be granted an additional access? That was discussed by Public Works, and that was discussed prior to the meeting back in 2022. On January 5th of 2022, the Public Works Department provided information to the applicant, the property owner, Randy Dirks, and said that the short plat provides the legal access to Mr. Dirks's lot, that per WRMC 10.24, SR 224 is a limited access facility. And as such, the Public Works Director cannot provide access to SR 224 because the property has access to a non-limited access street, which would be Woodford Lane. And adding an additional driveway to Mr. Dirks's property off of SR 224 would not meet access point spacing requirements for SR 224. We just wanted to clarify that point because that was a question that I didn't have the answer to at that time. Finally, staff recommends that the Planning Commission, that's the preview, copied that over. Staff recommends that City Council approve the preliminary plat, and approve the preliminary plat with the conditions and findings of fact with the associated frontage waiver as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Report. Very good. Well prepared. Thank you. And with that, I would like to ask, there's no parties in the audience this evening, but there is people virtually. If anybody is a party of record virtually that would like to comment on this item, please raise your virtual hand. Or *9 if you're by way of phone. I see no one virtually with their hand up for *9. Amy, do you see anyone?
No, I do not.
Motion to approve plat 003-2023 Caden Estates preliminary plat. Did I have a motion, please?
I move to approve preliminary plat number PLAT 003-2023 Caden Estates and the associated frontage improvement waiver based on the findings of fact, conditions of law, and conditions of approval, and as recommended by the Planning Commission.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Council, is there any questions you have that have not previously been addressed by our staff report this evening? Councilmember Bloom?
I just want to clarify the waiver is for improvements in Van Giesen, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So we are now placing a 9 parcel at the end of a private street, correct? It's not a city street. Woodward Lane is not a city street nor dedicated to city yet, correct?
That's correct. They will have to build Woodford Lane to city standards.
Who will?
The applicant.
Will have to upgrade Woodford Lane and the new appendage.
So Woodford Lane will be built to city standards for the conditions, and then the access Dirks Drive will be an access lane that will be to International Fire Code.
So it'll be a fire access lane then to the 9 properties.
Yes.
Councilman Smart?
Yeah, I was just wondering, so first of all, I want to acknowledge that I think most of us, I certainly did read all of the objections in the record from the nearby property owners.
Mm-hmm.
I also drove down Woodford Lane to take a look to see what it looks like. I understand it being a private road and that there's absolutely no desire by the neighbors there to have this improvement made. I have serious concerns about you know, what's going to happen to these sheds, which are perhaps near encroaching the easement as it shows on the map here, but more importantly contain wells for these residences, which as stated in one of the letters of objection, will undoubtedly, and I would have to technically agree, will be affected by anybody, you know, vibrating the ground to place roads in this area. So that's, I want to just voice that I understand that concern, and that is a serious concern, because we're not just requiring that the easements be totally applied, and I don't know if these items are encroaching or not, and I don't know when they were put in, or whether or not the road width was that wide when the plat was originally made, or not. You know, whether our city standard was the full width.
The 30 feet was put in place at the time that it was platted.
Okay, so it looks like they came right up to that. And I hope that met requirements at the time for wells, but I don't know. Anyway, all of that said, I just want to first of all acknowledge that there are serious concerns. I drove down Woodford Lane and saw that it was a nicely developed private access route for the homes adjacent to it. And I would agree that putting this access to 9 residential units through that location will be a serious impact to the nature of those residences. I will also note that it seems like, for whatever reason, the developer is choosing to put 3 larger lots adjacent to the developed homes, which is better than putting the whatever these are, townhouses or condominiums, next to the larger lot. So that shows consideration for those neighbors. But here's my question. So those were statements that I want to acknowledge on record. My question is, when it comes to analysis of alternatives, I saw, you know, and I understand the likelihood that access to Van Giesen will not be granted because of the distance to the adjacent access points and so forth. But when I look to the north on Google Earth, not shown on your map provided, there is, I'm wondering what the access easement is on the north edge of this property. It looks like there are 1 or maybe even 2, including Rupert Road, that travels off of Van Giesen to the north, and could then have a westward access off of Rupert Road, which would maybe not only access this development, but would also provide access for, it looks like a lot of empty properties along that route. And so I wonder if that's going to be developed in some point in the future, and if that shouldn't be considered now as an access route for these developments instead of
Alicia, what I'll ask either Eric or Roscoe to chime in regards to the questions or concerns that you might have, Councilman Smart, or go ahead and answer yourself, but I could open an opportunity up for Eric.
Well, and by the way, if this violates a surprise rule, because it is a technical question that maybe you have or haven't looked at before, I'm happy to pause this process and wait till next meeting for an answer. But I think
the answer that you're going to find is the applicants have made application and have done their due diligence. The city has also, the plats are already there, the easements are already there. So I'll let Eric go ahead and you know, we have to process what is requested by them. Eric?
Okay. So John, you're mentioning some future road that could be built that would access a lot of these properties. And I think that maybe afterwards we could talk to that and see if that's something that Public Works would consider and go through the Utilities Committee to maybe add to our roadway plan. Today, under today's standards, again, Alicia's done a good job of reviewing this application to today's standards. It does comply with our comprehensive plan. It does comply with our zoning designation of RM6. And it does provide the access that's required via the easements that are found on the plat and provided that are existing. So we see all of these are as existing property rights to that developer to be able to develop as he is proposing. And we have worked with him to accomplish those goals that he has. So that's where we're at. I think if there's a future connection that we want to consider, I think maybe that's something we can talk about later this evening, if you'd like.
Do you think that the north-south Dirks Drive, as it's now designated, that access easement was originally intended to access off of Van Giesen? Because it looks to me like it may have been intended that maybe 30 years ago, actually 50, 45 years ago. No. And then the second thing is, can you talk to the opportunity of accessing these properties from the that's undesignated easement, or not undesignated, but unlabeled on the west edge of these properties along the the 6 parcels, the 6 smaller parcels? Is that a viable access, or would that be more likely to be accessible from 224?
Council Smart, I don't know what you're referring to. So this 4 lots was short platted in the 70s when it was in Benton County. Okay. It has since been annexed in. Council zoned it RM6, and it still has the access through Woodford for these 4 lots. The time for those time of comments on the zoning or access should have been at the time when council rezoned it. Right now, all of it matches, and the access point is Woodford, and that's what's being considered. I'm not aware of any other access point. The access are on other short plats for those lots. These 4 lots that originally short platted, their access point is Woodford to the state highway.
I was just, and I'll just follow. I mean, I'm just looking at that this seems like there's some kind of access on 224 on Van Giesen about 300 feet to the west. Maybe it's the south.
Van Giesen goes north-south across this frontage. So
I'm sorry.
Sure. So you're messing me with
Ken's got his tablet turned sideways to me. So sorry about that. So no, I'm talking about further toward Benton City from, is that right? Toward Benton City from, so there's this access road that looks like it's accessing 1, 2 properties. And I didn't know if that was an easement that was considered for access to these, what look like, I think, adjacent lots that are being proposed to be developed.
Those are a separate short plat that was done in the county that serves access to those. So these lots here do not have use of that.
So you can't share that access.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you for that.
Councilman Bloom, follow up?
Yes, I'm following up that one. So that access he's talking about there was actually a short plat the city did. But so that lot to the south, I hope, of the development has access to Van Giesen, correct?
I've got a clarifying question, Jessica. This seems to be new information. That's nothing that's part of the existing record. Is this something that we can be diving into?
There are limited exceptions to for new information, but I don't know that.
Well, I'm asking the question, is there an access easement for that driveway that was mentioned in the record as suggested access to the property?
To the south?
To the south.
That easement is provided via a short plat, like we've said, that provides access to the lot that's behind.
Oh, I meant.
So it's not granting access or an easement that's providing an easement to the lot to the north. So it's.
No, I understand that. Is it providing an access to, it's providing an access to 240, to 224.
Correct.
Correct. So that is an access point to 224.
Right.
Did we consider piggybacking on that access? That's all.
Again, those access were approved for certain lots. That does not benefit this lot that's before you that's being.
No, they could ask for, you said that the separation of access points would be too close. So we have an access point there already. We could expand that access point. That's all my point.
The property owner.
I'm gonna say no.
Okay, Councilman Petto?
Yeah, I had basically the same question. Although unlikely, has, and I get letter of the law, this is set 1976, 77, whatever it was. This is, everybody knew when they bought these properties, this was their access. I drove down there as well, and it's a major disruption to these people's lives. Letter of the law, that's the way it reads. That's what they knew when they bought the properties. I get that. Is there an opportunity for the developer to petition the state to access these lots from either that private driveway to the south or from Dirks Road onto 224? Is there an opportunity for them to at least petition access, or is the state, they won't allow it at all?
So again, the access to the south is a private access for those lots on a separate short plat, not available. Okay, we have in our municipal code, limited access policies per municipal code that are there to limit access. And it specifically states they already have access to Van Giesen. So it doesn't allow for another access point. And it isn't consistent with the state's thing. It's a state highway. And these rules are there specifically so you don't have a bunch of driveways coming out to it. Again, the time for this discussion would have been when council zoned that property RM6. If they wanted to keep the rural nature of that thing, it should have been brought in as RO40. But again, the applicant before you has applied, meets all the conditions, and that's what we're to look at, not what is there, or now we want to change something when somebody's applied meeting the current requirements of the code.
I remind council that wavering away from what is before you in regards to it meets everything that the requirements are, and potential liability could fall on the city if we waver from that particular finding of fact. Councilmember Moran.
Thank you. I'm hoping that this will kind of put a neat little tie around all of this to kind of to make sure that I understand clearly. What we're being told is that the way that the laws and the ordinances and the codes are written, really the only way that we can legally do this is say, we will go on, what's the name of the road again? Woodford is the only way to provide access to these properties. Is that accurate?
That is their access to out to the public street of Van Giesen.
Okay. I'm just want to make sure that's clear. So by law, this is pretty much the only way that we can do this. Thank you.
Councilmember Smart.
Yeah, I don't think that's correct. I don't think it is the only way. I think that it is the way that is maybe congruent with the current arrangement, but I didn't hear an answer as to whether or not another access could or could not be petitioned from the state on this instance. And I also did not hear any discussion about the opportunity for the property owner to grant an access easement even beyond the central one, which he currently has on his property that travels east and west, and maybe grant another east and west access on the far southern end of his property, which could also access from 224. So I understand that this may meet, but I'm wondering if there's not an opportunity to move that the Planning Commission reevaluate this and address these alternatives that may or may not be possible.
I'd like to ask Melissa Foltz, our legal advice, where are we at on this particular issue, given that the developer has met all the requirements, meets all the codes, the zonings, the access easements, the right-of-ways, all of the above. Your position and advice to council, please.
So at this time, there has been an open record hearing. The Planning Commission has made a recommendation. The record is closed. So although we've been discussing, things related to the record, there are very limited exceptions to bringing in any kind of new evidence or considering alternatives. So if there were things that council felt that the Planning Commission should have considered that they didn't, our code would indicate that needed to be disclosed prior to the meeting in writing so that it could be made part of the record at that time. So at this time, the risk you run into is this appears to meet all the requirements in the code. What is, we have an appearance of fairness doctrine. What is the reason, that if the planning commission is recommending this, staff is recommending this, or staff feels it's appropriate, I guess I should say, that we're not pursuing it? And why wasn't the code followed in the sense of, if there were things that council didn't feel were considered, that wasn't raised until we're here now. So I would encourage council to decide on this issue and move forward, given that it appears everything is as it should be as far as conditions being met in the planning commission following their process.
And excuse me, that was Jessica, not Melissa.
That's okay.
We got some new people in town here. I got to get them straightened out. Thank you for your opinion. I appreciate that. Councilmember Moran.
Thank you. I just want to make sure if for some reason there was a decision not to follow this, and this would be a question to council, to Jessica. Yes. If we were to decide against doing this, would at some point this become a liability for the city, not allowing them to go forward on the possibility of something happening through another organization, state level or whatnot? Is that fair assessment?
I could certainly look into all the potential liability that could flow from that. I think the most obvious concern is, when you're looking at a record in front of you that is closed and there is an indication that it meets the code, and you're denying an application that meets the code and that your planning commission is recommending that you go forward with, if there is a concern about arbitrary and capricious enforcement of these types of actions and why you're denying a petition that meets the requirements when there's been an open record hearing held.
Thank you for your opinion. Councilor Mayor Pro Tem Brink.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Counselor, for your legal guidance on this matter. I have concerns as well that match somewhat what Mr. Smart has said, what Mr. Feddo has said. And perhaps the solution, though, for the long term is to look at our zoning in areas like this where the impact to current residents as a result of increased density, which they did not foresee, but which we authorize through our zoning decisions, needs to be revalued. However, we are bound by the closed record hearing guidelines and by the law. So I will vote in favor of this, although I do have concerns that perhaps we need to take a longer term solution to the potential concerns that have been raised here.
Mayor Pro Tem Brink, Councilman Blow.
I'm trying to find where maybe it was in the record. In your opening comments, you made a comment that in 2022, the discussion of another access to the property was discussed in the planning commission. Is that correct?
Yes, they had questions about that, but I didn't have that at hand.
Okay.
Of what?
Not with it was not with the planning commission. It was with staff and with public works.
Oh,
that's correct.
Yeah, just want to clarify that point.
So I guess the question came down to was planning commission told that there was no other option to accessing?
They were told.
They were told that. Now, Mr. Slade, is that absolutely true?
Again, the property to the south that was short platted has an access easement, but it's not for the lots to the north.
No, but it's access to.
But it's not for this lot that's being.
I totally understand.
And my understanding, talking to the applicant in 2022, he did pursue the land owner to the south about being able to use that and be granted it to come out that way. And the property owners to the south were not interested and wanted him to use as access per his short plat to the north. So that's what he applied with.
Okay. So again, the question comes down to is if it is an access point 2224 at that driveway, whatever you want. If the easement to access these lots were on the development side, there would be just one access point there, no expansion of access, just simply an expansion of the size of the access. So my question to our legal aspect is.
Let me just stop right there. So you're asking to put a road access adjacent to a private driveway to access a state highway?
Well, it's a fire access.
Yeah, and I'd say that's a no. Doesn't meet our code, and the state won't allow that.
So all of the.
You're trying to redesign a plat that meets the conditions and his legal access is what you're trying to do in this closed record hearing.
Well, no, my question was to legal, was if in the closed record hearing, we look at this, is there an option to send it back to the planning commission if we find that the planning commission may have been misled?
Wait a minute. You know, that's a strong statement that staff misled thing.
Well,
the code does not allow another access out to a limited access facility in our municipal code. So there was no misleading. Just to make that clear.
Well, I'm not saying misleading well, I'm not.
Do you have any more questions, Councilman Bloom? Councilman Smart?
The property has no other legal access to Van Giesen other than what's shown and he's using with his preliminary plat.
But I did ask a question and it hasn't been answered. And that is, can a petition be made to the state to acquire that? And second, I would point out that this would actually, I believe, save costs to the developer, because they would not have to, it looks like they're having to develop almost twice as much road through this current legal access as they would if they were to gain new access off of SR 224. That's just a matter of geometry. So, I mean, actually it'd be significantly less. It'd almost be half as much road to develop. And the cost to them would be, I understand they'd have to generate a new easement on the property. But I'm wondering, like Mr. Bloom mentioned, was that potential alternative discussed at the planning commission? And if it was, great. And if it wasn't, is there an avenue to have them consider that before we conclude on this particular motion? And then I would follow up with the fact that if that's not a possibility, then what we have been presented with here is, in my opinion, a distasteful solution to a problem that we are forced to vote yes on, without the opportunity to even be able to abstain, because I have no grounds for abstaining. And so that's an uncomfortable position for us as councilmen, councilwomen. And I don't like that. And in the future, if just because our zone map allows something like this to disrupt our current residents to happen, this should be brought before council long before the standard procedure requires it to be. Because it's obvious to anybody with eyes that this is a very disruptive act toward residents that are already been established for several decades. So I understand the legality, but there should have been an extreme effort to analyze and seek out alternatives. I don't see evidence of that.
And I'll remind you, Councilman Smart, that you are not forced to vote yes. If you're opposed to it, you have the right to vote no.
Without incurring liability, as we've been told? Just please confirm that.
I'm just making it clear, you're not being forced. You can vote no. You can vote no. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
And just to clarify, Councilor Smart, so your code, Westchester Municipal Code 1024, doesn't allow the granting of an access to a limited access street when it already has, for residential development now, which this is, doesn't allow us to grant another access when it already has legal access.
let's get that reviewed. But I understand. Thank you for bringing that.
Yeah, that's not the problem with the code. That's the reason we have limited access facilities is to limit driveways out to our arterials and state highways. Again, I don't know when this was zoned back then, but you've still got a lot of that through there that that this could impact. They are going to get some benefit from it because they are going to get fire hydrants and other paved road and improvements that will go to that neighborhood. So it's not just a detriment. It is more density, but it meets what the planning and the city standards are.
Well, let me follow up with this question. This is a congenial question. This north-south access road, after you go past Woodford, it looks like it'll only be extended to the middle of this developed lot, or will it, or could it, or would it in the future be extended to these other properties? And will 224 cut off the access point south of Woodford, which is now a private road or private access that we've been talking about, this private access driveway? Would the access that comes off of Woodford maybe be extended to those properties, or has that not been decided?
So the road that the part of this development that goes south will not be extended to that other access easement because they have no right to utilize that, or to extend it out to Van Giesen, because Van Giesen is a limited access facility.
Mr. Mayor, I move to call the question.
Got a call for the question. Do I have a second from the call for the question?
I'll second.
Have a second. And all in favor of calling for the question, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Nay.
Motion carried. Call for the question. 4-2, 5-2, excuse me. With that, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign.
Nay.
Motion carried. Thank you, council. We're going to go ahead and move on to items 8C, which is an ordinance to amend the West Richland Municipal Code regarding public schools support facilities. We'll have Eric Mendenhall presenting the staff report this evening. Eric.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before you is a zoning code text amendment that was applied for by the Richland School District. They own some property that is in the commercial general zoning district that they would like to utilize for their FFA program. So this is their sheep and their goats and their bennies and their chickens. And so they've requested that use be allowed in that zone. So staff's reviewed it. We're recommending it be allowed as a conditional use. Therefore, it'd have to go to the planning commission to get their approval, and the neighbors would be notified that there's going to be goats and chickens coming to their neighborhood. And so that's what this proposal is for. It would allow for the school district, would allow for a public school, I should say, to have these agricultural facilities.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the audience? Obviously, we have nobody here, but anybody from virtual land out there would like to speak to this item on the agenda this evening, please raise your virtual hand or *9. I see no one virtually myself. Amy, do you?
No, I do not.
Council, may I have a motion, please?
I move to pass ordinance 06-23 approving the proposed text amendment TXT 001-2023 and amending the West Richland Municipal Code to 1, amend section 17.13.030 to add a definition for public agriculture school facilities, and 2, amending section 17.13.030 commercial land use matrix, allowing public agricultural school facilities in the commercial general as a conditional use.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Council, any questions that haven't been answered in regards to this item on the agenda for Eric? Councilmember Kettle.
Thanks, Mayor. Eric, it looks like for the most part, we got Calic to the, whatever side that is. I look at the map.
West.
To the left. Looks like there's just 2 houses, 2 neighborhoods behind on East Latin. Have they been contacted?
They have not. They would be during the conditional use permit process.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
yep.
Councilmember Smart.
Yeah, I may have missed it, but was the Was the permission granted to include large cattle in stock or just the small? Small,
just small.
Thank you.
No swine or roosters.
Excellent, thank you.
You know, I see no other.
Swine and roosters being in the same category. I see, thank you.
No other questions. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Thank you. I was at my doctor's the other day and he
I
said
had a
he
light
looked
in the moon.
forward to looking out his window and seeing that from that window. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and move on to item 8D, an ordinance to amend the West Richland Municipal Code for secondary signage for public facilities. And we'll have Eric presenting staff report again, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before you this evening is a sign code text amendment that would allow for secondary signage for public facilities to be exempt from the sign code. There is some stipulations there, limits the size to 120 square feet. This would be again limited to public facilities. So city, Richland School District, library could have a secondary signage when they've got dual frontage effectively, where you've got inability to advertise on both sides because of the limitations that exist in our existing sign code.
Councilman Bloom.
So this would be permanent signage, or I somehow expected temporary signage of a large banner type of thing.
No, so this is permanent signage. Yes.
Back up one. I gotta ask for a motion. That's okay. So happy with the last one there. We got ahead of ourselves. Got a motion, please.
I move to pass ordinance 07-23, approving the proposed text amendment TXT 002 2023 and amending the West Richland Municipal Code to 1, amend section 17.09.070 F definitions to add a definition for fire station.
Second. Oh, wrong one. That's right. Motion's incorrect. It is.
Back up one, Kate, and you re-cue it.
It's in the right place, but the motion is listed incorrectly in the packet.
Like the fire station motion to go public facilities.
Okay, so everything the same, but strike fire station and have it say public. Nope, that's not right either because it's not a definition.
Eric.
My recommended motion was I move to approve proposed text amendment TXT 002 2023 as proposed by staff.
I move to pass ordinance 07-23, approving the proposed text amendment TXT 002 2023 as staff recommended.
And adopt ordinance 07-23.
And adopt ordinance 07-23.
Okay. You got it, cut and paste.
Which is agenda item 8D, correct? Thank you.
I'll second.
Okay, now we'll go back to Councilman Bloom's question.
Yeah, they'd be able to have one primary sign that faces the primary street. And then they'd have a secondary sign that would face, if they're on a corner, for instance, they'd be able to have a sign that faces another street. So for instance, if the high school was built and they had their access off of, the side street there, and they've got one on Keene, then they got the side street there, they could have a secondary sign on that side street.
Anyone else? Seeing none? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, on the fire stations. 8A or E is an ordinance to amend the West Richland Municipal Code to define fire stations. Community Development Director, Eric, you're up again.
I am. It's the community development show tonight, and this text amendment, what this does is creates a definition for fire station. We didn't have one, and we wanted to make sure that specifically training facilities were incorporated into the definition, so that as our Benton 4 fire department has their training, and if they need to bring in equipment or whatever for their training, that the neighbors can't call up and say, hey, it looks like a junkyard over there and that meets the definition for a junkyard or whatever, and I've got to go enforce on it. So I wanted to protect the fire station, that they were able to operate and function as a fire station as they are for now and in the future.
Thank you. And is there anyone from the audience that is virtual would like to speak to this agenda item this evening? Please raise your hand or star 9. We have nobody personally here on this item. I see no one virtually. Amy, do you?
No, I do not.
That, may I have a motion, please?
I move to pass ordinance 0823 approving the proposed text amendment TXT 003 2023 and amending the West Richland Municipal Code to amend section 1709-070 F definitions to add a definition of fire station.
Second.
Second, is there any other questions that haven't been previously addressed in the staff report? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you, council. Moving on to 8F and an ordinance to amend the 2023-2024 budget. I'll ask Aaron, Finance Director, to present our staff report this evening.
Thank you, Mayor Gary. Good evening, council. This evening, I'm presenting the second budget amendment of the 23-24 biennial budget. The first item, as the finance team is completing the 2022 annual financial report, we've completed a few additional journal entries from our last budget amendment, which changed the ending fund balance of a few funds, general fund, street fund, the water fund 401, stormwater 404. These changes were really small and the net is 0. It was just some transactions between funds. This budget amendment would recognize those. Other items in this amendment are all new. For the general fund, the police department applied and was awarded a small state grant from Washington State Criminal Justice Training Commission in the amount of $10,000 for officer wellness. The grant funds are slated to be used for purchasing gym equipment. This amendment recognizes the grant revenue as well as appropriates $10,000 for the gym equipment. Also in the general fund, this amendment appropriates $20,000 from the ending fund balance to outfit each of our police vehicles with pit bumpers. Legislators recently approved Senate Bill 5352, which is expected to be signed by our governor soon. This would allow officers to engage in vehicular pursuit if there is a reasonable suspicion for certain crimes. Having pit bumpers on the vehicles will help mitigate damage from these pursuits and hopefully reduce the city's repair bills. In the water system development fund 441, this amendment recognizes $600,000 additional revenue from the rural county capital funds from Benton County to be appropriated by the same amount for water infrastructure improvements on the State Route 224 project. The remaining 2 items are within Fund 441, Water System Development Fund, and Fund 442, the Sewer System Development Fund. In January, Council passed Resolution 0723 authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Frank Teagues LLC for prepayment water and sewer system development fees for 1,000 single family residential units. In March, the city received a letter from Frank Teagues LLC stating their request to assign a portion of its prepaid water and sewer connections to be used at the Heights at Red Mountain Phase 5, which is 57 lots. The developer, Aho Construction, had previously paid these fees in July of 2022. And because the revenue was received in a prior year, the city will need to record the refund as an expense. This amendment appropriates an additional $62,700 from Fund 441 and $41,838 from Fund 442 for this refund. This amendment authorizes an increase in the 23-24 appropriations in the amount of $734,538 and recognizes an increase in total resources in the amount of $610,232, bringing the total revised budget to $136,196,051. And staff recommends passing the ordinance.
Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate that. We have no one in person here. Is there anyone virtually attending that would like to speak to this item on the agenda this evening? Please raise your hand or star 9. On your phone, you'll be recognized. I see no one. Amy, do you?
No, I do not.
Council, may I have a motion, please?
I move to pass ordinance 09-23, amending the city of West Richland 2023-2024 biennial budget.
Second.
Second, any questions that haven't been answered in regards to the previous staff report, council? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carried unanimous. Thank you, council. Moving on to 8G is a motion to award SR 224 Water and Sewer Improvement Project. We'll have Roscoe Slade, Public Works Director, present staff report this evening, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Typically, this would be on the consent agenda to award the project, but because we needed to make sure council approved the budget amendment with the additional $600,000 of RCCF funds first and authorize the expenditure of that, this was put down the regular agenda after the budget amendment. But this is our water sewer project on Van Giesen in preparation of the Red Mountain project that'll be supposed to go out to construction in the fall of 2024. So let's get all the water and sewer underground stub outs before we go and build that new roadway. Bids were $55,000 under engineer's estimate, and staff's recommend council award the project.
Thank you, Wilson. And again, no one personally here. Anybody virtual like to speak to this agenda item? Please raise your hand or star 9 by phone. Be recognized. I see no one. Amy, do you see anybody?
No, I do not.
Council, may I have a motion, please?
I move to award this SR 224/Van Giesen Improvement Project Phase 2 Water Sewer to Mahaffey Enterprises in the amount of $1,619,745.17, including sales tax, and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract.
Second.
Second, thank you. Again, any questions that haven't been previously answered in staff report? Seeing none, council, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Like sign, motion carries unanimous. Thank you, council. We have no unfinished business this evening, and so this will or new business. So let's go ahead and move this to our last citizen public comment. If you'd like to address council, obviously we have no one here in person unless Councilman Bloom would like to step to the podium again as a citizen. Otherwise, we'll go out to the virtual participants. Anybody this evening would like to address council, star 9, or raise your virtual hand. Amy, I see no one. Do you?
No, I do not.
Thank you. We're going to go ahead and move on. Staff and council comments. Anybody have any comments from the staff or council? Go ahead and start with staff first. Seeing no one, we're going to roll into council comments. Councilman Raffetto.
Yeah, I just wanted to say quickly, great job, Chief. When I first came on 5+ years ago, there was a lot of officers that we trained and shipped out other places. And just it seems like 6 months ago, we had 7 openings. to be fully staffed. That's a testament to your leadership, and thank you to you and your staff.
Thank you, Councilman Beto. Councilmember Moran.
Thank you very much. So first on the, when was that? Oh, what did I find? On the 21st, there was the Benton Franklin Council of Governments meeting. And when we discussed that, and I apologize for not getting the email to you, but just as your email had said, Mr. Slade, we discussed the changes, and for the most part, the changes that the TAC had recommended, we decided to go. One of the reasons that we decided not to go with the weighted, just in case you were interested, was because it seemed like really the only ones that wouldn't be weighted would be the smaller cities and the ports. But with the amount of transportation involved with the ports, there was concern that they wouldn't have as much effect as some of the larger cities. So that was the main reason why. It was definitely discussed though, so it wasn't just poo-pooed. There was a clarification about the recordings of the Ben Franklin Council of Governments meeting. They are recording again for the meetings. And if there is a decision to change that, that would go towards the whole board of Benton Franklin Council of Governments and not just a few folks deciding that. There was also a Tri-Cities Mobility Action Group meeting on the 28th. There was some good discussion there, and hopefully Kelly Harnish will either contact or has already, she's already contacted you, Roscoe, great, for a walk audit that they're hoping to do in June here in West Richland. So I'm looking forward to that, and hopefully at least some of us can also attend because their walk audits are very, very robust. There is also on October 6th at Libby Middle School, we found out, there is going to be Cane Quest, which has happened before in the Tri-Cities. And this is actually going to be a regional event. So the closest that they have to this event is in California. So it's not just a Washington thing. This is all Pacific Northwest region is going to be at Libby Middle School for this Cane Quest, where they're going to be young folks showing off their talents with their white canes. For those that are unfamiliar, it's for those that are vision impaired. They use the white canes rather than having like a seeing eye person or dog, whatnot. And so hopefully there will be folks able to attend that and view all of the very talented folks in the Pacific Northwest. Other than that, I will say that I got to see Marissa and a few other folks of staff at, I can't remember the name of the event, but it was this Saturday. It was a huge adoption event. It's somebody's hope. I can't recall, but it was great. I got a chance to talk to Marissa, and I'm really excited continuing on with the way that our police force and the city in general is making sure that animals that are lost are able to be either reclaimed or able to be fostered or even adopted out. Because just like the people here in the city, the animals here also deserve care. So thank you very much for that, and send my regard to Marissa.
Councilmember Moran, Councilman Bro.
Yes, 2 weeks ago, I got to spend 2 full days up in Yakima at the Hanford Advisory Board meeting. And we were entertained by the Yakima Nation. And I found some interesting information passed along that the Yakima Nation will come and trap beavers and relocate them to their property if you have some issues. So I've informed that of the mosquito control district, which has had significant problems with that, but I'm not quite sure if we have that issue yet. But that's something. I have some contact information of that. And better than that, actually, DOE will pay my way up and back, so I don't have a mileage on that one. I didn't spend the night in Yakima. Next week, I will be up in Yakima, or this week, I'll be up in Yakima later. We are having a retreat for the Yakima Basin Fish and Wildlife Recovery Board, and we are finally going to have basically an overall get together and decide what the Yakima Basin Fish and Wildlife Recovery Board is going to do in the future. So we're doing strategic goals and initiatives for the future rather than just looking at a year by year passing on the dollars. And so there've been a great deal of outreach to our partners, which do a lot of the work. All we do is pass on money. And possibly as to our other entities that are members, but not necessarily on the board to get their input. And so there should be a strategic plan coming out in the next summer, which will sort of paint the picture for the future. And you know, what things that we as you know, living on the Yakima River, what things we can help with, as well as what possible grants we can sort of leverage into this aspect. So with that, more to come. Art?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to thank Councilmember Bloom for filling in on that trip to Yakima. I appreciate that. It was hard for me to get away, and he's continuing to serve diligently, and I very much appreciate that. And I also wanted to, Mayor, give you the opportunity at some point during this comment period to relate to our audience what you related to me before the meeting about the images behind us here.
Oh.
And who, well, I don't know if I can repeat them exactly, but I wanted to call them out. They're on the video here. And we've got George Washington, and he's got his hand out to the Declaration of Independence. And I think one of these was donated, or both?
Yes, it was Luis Ojeda from Ojeda's, was the one who gave us that painting of George Washington. And I told him I'd make sure it went to the right place. And I believe it's right next to the flag. So perfect.
It is absolutely perfect. So thank you. Appreciate that.
Well, anytime you get an opportunity, thank you.
I absolutely will. Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to bring up, and I know I'm one of the newer city council members, but I had a lot of concerns with our last city council meeting and the behavior of one of the residents toward our city staff. I just personally feel there should be more guidelines on what behavior is appropriate during public comment. And we should be able to cut them off if they are displaying inappropriate behavior toward not only staff or council people or anybody else in the audience. And I feel that as a city council member, I take this serious, and I feel we have the responsibility of council to protect our city staff in any of these such situations, not encouraging public to have any attacks, verbal, whatever, toward staff. I believe in our staff. I appreciate our staff and all their dedication and hard work for the continued improving the city. And I would just like it sometime on down the line, we bring that up in a retreat, bring it up and look at maybe having some set policies to protect our staff. Thank you.
Councilmember Hayes, I totally agree, but unfortunately, the Freedom of Speech Act is there to protect the individuals to have that freedom of speech. However, I do take into consideration if an individual becomes vulgar, aggressive, loud, does not listen to what I asked them to do to become compliant. So while I do also feel a need sometimes to ring the bell, I err on the side of caution, unfortunately. And one thing that's very fortunate in regards to our staff is these people have got some pretty thick skin, because they not only receive things in this nature when public addresses council or the staff, but they receive this type of treatment during the business hours of the day. And I commend them for their ability to deal with individuals that are upset and have attitude problems, you might say. But unfortunately, I gotta be kind of walk that fine line. But when that line's crossed, I will certainly make it known.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your concern and appreciation of our staff as well. Mayor Pro Tem Brick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just two quick items. On April 21st, I attended virtually the AWC, that's the Association of Washington Cities, first Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Roundtable. They gathered about 60 or so city officials, several fellow board members were in attendance, but it was really CEO Deanna Dawson's efforts to gather tools and resources for cities to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion within their workforce. So I do applaud her efforts. She's trying to address a concern that was expressed by several communities within the state. You know, how do we go about fulfilling some of these expectations? And lastly, for my fellow council members, as well as senior staff, June 20th to 23rd is the AWC annual conference taking place in Spokane. It is not just for council members, it is for mayors as well as senior staff are invited to that as well. Although it spans 3 days, 3 days attendance is certainly not required. We all have very busy schedules, but even spending 1 day at this event, I've found to be very rewarding. So I just wanted to make that known to everyone so that you can consider that in your plan. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
I'd like to remind everybody, we've got something coming up tomorrow. If you have some spare time between 5:30 and 7 o'clock, we have a town hall over at Lenora Libby with our Senator Dozier, Representative Rude, and Representative Plickert. We're in the 16th district. A lot of people don't know their representatives. It's been redistricted to the 16th, and they cover clear Walla Walla out this direction, some of Kennewick as well, and some Pasco. So they're going to have a couple of different town halls. So they'll present as to the legislative session that went on this last session, and then also question and answer session. So yeah, great opportunity to meet Senator Dozier, Representative Rude, and Representative Plickett. And then just for your information, that land use issue that you're speaking to that was brought to the council is making some headway with staff, and everything is going to move forward, and I think it's going to work out. Just wanted to let you know that these people here have done a fine job to de-escalate a difficult situation, make things happen. Kudos to our staff. Thank you. And with that, we will not have an executive session, as I mentioned earlier, in our change of agenda. We will adjourn this meeting at 7:52. Thank you, council.